I think that we may have touched on this peripherally, but we really need to ask the question of how it is that we daven for things and we make these requests, and what is our relationship with making requests over and over and over again, whether the request is fulfilled, it's not fulfilled. What's the idea? I told Hashem that there's something that I want or feel that I need, and I'm done. I mean, what's the difference between a person who davens again and again for something and a Nudnick? What's the difference between somebody who davens and somebody who's a Nudnick? And to understand what that involves, we need to get a little bit of an idea of what it means to make a request. The pasuk tells us, "Kaveh el Hashem, chazak v'yametz libecha, v'kaveh el Hashem." The understanding, what it means is that there is a key aspect of our growth as Bale Bitachon, as in our growth as those who relate to Hashem, that we turn to Him with our requests. And the process of turning to Him with our requests is meant to be spiritually meaningful, meaning the fact that I recognize that everything is from Hashem, and that He is the only one to whom I turn, and that the fact that there is needs in the world is really only because Hashem is mis'ave l'tfilosam shel tzadikim. Hashem wants the connection with us. And so He doesn't just give us mitzvahs to do, He gives us things to ask for, so that we can strengthen our sense of Him being the source of everything. So requesting of Hashem is a key exercise in the avoda called bitachon. So the process is not just to get what it is that I'm asking for, because even if you got what you were asking for, then the avoda of bitachon would be saying thank you. That would then become the avoda of bitachon, is to recognize that Hashem heard my tefillah and accepted it and granted me what it was that I was requesting. And so the avoda would shift over to thank you. But we're always in a state of request and thank you. We're always being moda ala avar and tzoek ala asi. That is what we're about in our avodas habitochon. And so you don't choose to ask Hashem for something randomly, because that's not going to strengthen your bitachon. The strengthening of your bitachon is when you turn to Hashem with something that you really want or feel that you need. Then, if Hashem chooses to grant the request, then the avoda shifts to the thank you. And then something else takes its place in the world of request. So the idea of davening until you get something is off. If you want to know how that looks in the Western world, the idea of a divinity, of Hashem, if you will, is Superman. So a person has a problem, and he calls out to Superman, and Superman comes and saves him from his problem. And he always does one thing after that. He flies away. So that there's no ongoing relationship with Superman. It is simply when I have a need, I call out. Then he comes and he fixes it, solves the problem, and then he flies away. But that's exactly the opposite of what our relationship with Hashem is supposed to be, which is why this is so tricky. Because we have a Superman mentality, thinking that somehow that's meant to be our relationship with Hashem. But that's not it. The idea is to continually strengthen our sense of our relationship with Hashem. But we are always in a relationship with Hashem. In fact, Rabbeinu Yonah puts it that if you keep on doing this, it gets to the point where the yearning for and the kaveh el Hashem becomes stronger than the fear that generated the prayer in the first place. The exercise of requesting from Hashem should not be viewed as, but I don't know if he's going to say yes. I don't know if he's going to grant me my request. That's not the point. If you have the need, then make the request. And when the need is not fulfilled, such that you're not switching it over to gratitude, you are in a position to make the request again. But the point of the request again is not to be a Nudnick. It is to use that which I need to strengthen my bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because we have this Superman mentality, many people flounder. Somebody said, I'm like a little bit embarrassed to repeat it, but somebody was by the Kosel, and he said he was irritated, and he turned to Hashem and he said, "If you don't answer my request, I'm going to kill a steer." The absurdity of the idea that somehow Hashem is an ATM machine, where you go with your card, you put in your card, whether the card is davening or doing a mitzvah or giving tzedakah or otherwise some other form of manipulation, and you get out whatever it was that you were asking for. And that's not, that the ATM model or the Superman model is not a good model for one's relationship with Hashem. In fact, Rabbeinu Yonah says that there's a side benefit from bitachon, from turning to Hashem with your request. The side benefit is that in His rachamim, He will often grant you what you're requesting. That's a side benefit. That's an ancillary. It's an also. That in addition to the benefit that comes spiritually from turning to Hashem with our requests and acknowledging that we are in an intimate relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a side benefit, which is that in His rachamim, He may very well grant the request. So we're opening up a big subject, and I think that it's important to recognize that Hashem wants our tefillos, and that we're meant to want to bring our tefillos. It's not meant to be like I really wish l'chatchila, the ideal existence would be that I would not be missing anything. But now that I am missing things, so I'll ask Hashem. That's not the l'chatchila. We were not designed to have all of our needs met. In fact, we make a bracha where we thank Hashem, Bareinu Pashos Rabos V'Chesrono, that Hashem creates us and our deficiency. He creates us with what we're missing. Well, why would we say thank you if the ideal existence would be need-free? We're not meant to be need-free. In fact, people who are need-free get into big spiritual trouble. And the Pasuk tells us, "Vayomer Ephraim, ach basharti matzosi on li kol yigi'ai loim to li avon asher chet." The Radak says that this Pasuk in Hosea means the opposite of Kaveh el Hashem. V'kaveh el Elokecha tamid. He's not yearning for Hashem because he thinks that he got it and he worked it out and he has kochi v'otzem yadi and he's got his life worked out. That's not an advantage. That's a disadvantage. So the idea of always being tzoek ala asid and moda ala avar is not just a way of handling the challenges of life. It's a way of handling our spiritual existence. That is how we're meant to be, in a continuous state of moda ala avar and tzoek ala asid. So that when we do get something, we immediately turn to recognize that it's only from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that I didn't do this on my own. And so we're opening up a subject that I think requires a little more analysis. But by way of opening the subject, let's look at the request that we're making of Hashem as being part of our spiritual avoda and not part of a b'diavad system that since I'm missing something, I have to be turning and asking Hashem.